Right, so we're back on with the Skyline this week. One of the issues we had with the twins kit, obviously everything is really, really tight. And I'd kind of taken the decision that although we'd gotten to a point where we were getting close to done, I wasn't happy with it. There were clearances that I knew I could have got better by kind of starting again. And although that's not what you want to do, because Sam would like his car back, and we would like to be finished, the most important thing is that we do the job right, because then we can be confident in the product that we can offer in the future, rather than doing something and knowing you could have done it better. So the situation we had was the cast 3-cylinder collectors we're using from these come from Australia, and this was pretty much January time. Delays on actually the manufacturing of the collectors, and then delays on getting them here. We decided to just go for the single turbo kit, work all that out, and whilst we did all that, we could deal with all the logistics problems behind getting some more 3-cylinder collectors. Bad news is, only one 3-cylinder collector turned up, and we need 2. So we're going to do our best to try and... The rear turbo was the one that I had the biggest problem with. So I'm going to put the front turbo and manifold back on, done that now, get them roughly in the same position they were, put a downpipe in, or like a mock-up downpipe. Doesn't really have to go to anywhere, I just want to take in the space of the downpipe, which would be here. So I just want to take in the space of where the downpipe would go, and then I'm going to put another turbo in the back and kind of offer up a downpipe for that, and then see if I've got enough room. If I need to move this turbo forward, I'm going to have to do that, and I'm going to need to, we're going to need to try and get hold of another 3-cylinder collector, which we should be able to do, but it's just lead times that we don't really want to be dealing with at the minute. Or we'll have to reuse the collector from that manifold, which I also don't really want to do. When it comes to prototyping and things like that, you want everything to be as accurate as possible. But those are the challenges we've got. I've got this front turbo and manifold back on, and I would really like to be able to keep this manifold if possible. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a downpipe on the back of it, take a look at the space we've got, and see if I think we can get to a point where I'm happy with this turbo in the position it's in. So yeah, do a bit of mocking up. Right, so I can see now that it's one of them. It's probably always going to be a bit compromised if I was to leave that front turbo where it is. What I would like to do is just bring this turbo forward like an inch, maybe. Before it was about here, which wasn't too bad. But if I could bring it forward an inch, it would make the downpipe clearance so much better, and that's pretty much what we were struggling with. So I think I've got no choice really other than to remake that front manifold as well. Again, it's not ideal, but it's just the situation we're in, and we want it to be right, so that's what we'll do. We'll kind of start again with this back manifold and then work on the front one after, get something mocked up, and then work out the primaries. So I've got everything chopped up, had a bit of a mock-up and a play around, and I think the height on reflection is actually okay. I just need to bring the turbo further out. I think if I bring the turbo further out, the height's not a problem. So just to kind of demonstrate, obviously that's where the flange was before, we need to move it basically to there, and that gets us a ton more downpipe clearance. Actually means we get more clearance here as well, which isn't necessarily something we need, but any way you can gain more clearance is good. That's what you want. So I think what we'll go for doing now is I'm either just gonna tack that on there and make a jig, and then basically remanufacture the manifold. So I can tack that on there, because then I can also actually double check I am 100% happy with the position, and then go ahead and remake the manifold. But what I'll probably do is, yeah, I'll probably tack that on there. That'll let me triple check that I'm happy with the placement of the manifold, and then I'm probably going to do a similar thing with the front one. Although I think with the front one, I will have to remake it, because I do want it a bit lower. Again, just to get the clearances better between the manifolds, and yeah. So yeah, let's get that tacked on there, I think. It's very quiet. My idea to use the existing manifold and just kind of cut the flange off, move it over a bit, and then jig it wasn't really going to work. It was getting a bit too high because it was on an angle. You move the flange up, the whole thing gets higher, and we've got this wrong once, so I really don't want to get it wrong again. So now I've gone back to the same things what we did before. You know, just using a piece of hanger bar. It allows me to move and manipulate the turbo around. You know, I can kind of bend it, put it where I want it, and this time I can, you know, I'm really going to make sure I spend a good bit of time getting it exactly where I want it, with no compromises this time. So I've got that first one in with the downpipe on the back of it. I've got downpipe clearance now. It's nice down there. That's what I want. What really defines the intake and the height of the turbo is where the other turbo is going to go. So at the minute, I've got plenty of room to bring the height of this turbo up, which makes fabricating the front turbo manifold a lot easier. The higher the manifold is, the more room you've got to create the primaries. Take a look on this one. Like if this manifold was a lot lower, it means the primaries would have to be longer, because they would have to come down a lot more before they can go up, basically. So we do want to keep the height as kind of close to the, well, as high as possible, really, because it just means we can have shorter primaries. So I'll basically do the same again now. I'm going to get another collector prepped, set the turbo on a piece of hanger bar, and then I can manipulate it around, move it around, and get them both perfectly where they should be, hopefully. And then we can start to fabricate the manifolds again. So I've now got both turbos mounted again, and I've again gone for the hanger bar method. But what I've actually done this time is I've kind of reinforced both turbos as well, so I've got them pretty solidly mounted on two pieces of hanger bar, because I've also got a downpipe in, and I want to pretty much mock up a downpipe on both turbos this time before I go ahead and build the manifolds. I've also attached both wastegates and started to look at where both wastegate dump pipes will go. There's so little room in the engine bay to get things wrong. You know, we're starting again in order to make sure that we are 100% happy with it. And I'm as happy as I can be now that we've got the clearance we need. You know, we've got as much clearance as we're going to get, basically. And I've got downpipes in. And we've probably got, so we have got a lot more clearance now. We've got much more clearance on the intake for this rear turbo, which is better. Basically, just by moving both turbos forwards, it's allowed me to lower this one a little bit, raise the height of this one a little bit. Kind of 10 millimeters here and there makes quite a big difference, really. So it's now pretty much a case of fabricating the manifolds again. One of the really nice things I've been able to do, which I couldn't do with the positioning before, is that now I can get the manifold, this rear manifold, on and off with the wastegate on it. We can actually get that manifold all the way out with the wastegate on. And that's such an advantage, because if you was to try and fit that wastegate with the turbo on, it'd be really hard to get the position of it right. So being able to put the wastegate on there in a known correct position, which is probably like how we would ship it if it was part of a kit, because we would assemble it all, Being able to just throw that on and not have to worry about adjusting it from the underneath and then trying to re-tighten the V-bands up when everything's impossible to get to, that is a real handy thing to be able to do. We can't do it with the front one just because the chassis leg is too far in the way, but this wastegate's a lot easier to get at, and even with both turbos on, you can actually get at this wastegate and adjust it no problem, because we've got all this area here. We're not struggling in front of the ABS module. So yeah, that's definitely one thing that I've been very pleased about, is being able to get this manifold on and off with the wastegate in position. Right, so I've got these all mocked up now, all these primaries mocked up with the ICE Engine Works modelling blocks. And this primary here was causing me a bit of a headache. And because it's so close and the height's so similar, I could have just used 3 short radius bends like this and tried to kind of make a really short primary, which would have been really easy to fabricate. But in doing that, I would have ended up with one primary a lot shorter than all the others, and I'm not super interested in equal length because it really doesn't have that much of an impact on a turbo manifold. I'd rather compact, efficient, works well, rather than trying to add in extra length to get equal length. But when you have one which is so much shorter, that cylinder's always going to run hotter because there's going to be more resistance in that cylinder, especially on something like a 6-cylinder engine. So I kind of had to make that primary quite a lot longer and quite a lot more complicated than I would have liked. But again, this is the beauty of the ICE Engine Works modelling blocks, because I've been able to pretty much make them all the same length now without too much effort. So although I wasn't aiming for an equal length manifold, we've kind of got it well within about 10%, which is, again, for what this is, which is a turbo manifold where equal length isn't really that important. Yeah, that's really good. So it's now just a case of replicating these in steel. Fully welded up now. The only things we haven't yet welded are the wastegate outlets and the turbine flanges. Don't want to weld the wastegate outlets until I'm absolutely 100% bang on that they're going to be in the correct position, because it's such an easy thing to change that I can kind of mess around with that. Given that we're still kind of in the prototyping stage, I can move that 5mm and it might really help me out. So I'll kind of leave myself the option to do that. And then with the turbine flanges, I don't really want to weld them until I've cut these supports out. And I can cut these supports out now that I've welded the manifold up. But it's just easier at this point that I'll weld up that flange once I weld up the wastegate and kind of finish the manifolds all off together. But you can see now how they sit on the block pretty much like this, and this is all the extra length I had to put into this primary to make it roughly the same length as these two, yet still trying to leave enough clearance for the downpipe off this turbo. So I've managed to do that this time, and yeah, these have come out a lot better than the first pair I made, and I'm definitely happier with that. So yeah, it's just a case of fitting them back on the car now and starting to construct some downpipes. Right, both the turbos back in now on top of the manifolds on the positions that I had marked, which we can still kind of play around with a little bit. So that's the like rotational position, and then got kind of the first elbow with both downpipes in, both wastegates on, and I can see much more clearly now that we've got a lot more room. Probably the most challenging bit now, I think, is going to be getting this front wastegate back into the downpipe. This downpipe will kind of point right over towards the chassis leg, a bit more than it is doing now, because it needs to clear this primary. And then we're going to have to get this wastegate kind of piped back into it a bit further down. But it'll be a bit easier to see like from the underneath and when we kind of strip it all out and do it all on the bench basically. But that's going to be the next challenge now, is yeah, working out those downpipes. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.